What if pain isn't the problem, but actually the pathway back to you? You're listening to The Leadership Wound, From Pain to Permission. I'm Amanda Rohr, your host and founder of Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading. This is where we get honest about the real cost of leadership, the burnout, the pretending, the rejection, and the return to your authentic self. Because this isn't about performance, it's about permission. Welcome to the leader you've always been.
Here's the trap. External validation feels like leadership fuel, but it actually drains you. Because if your worth is tied to someone else's reactions, you'll always be hustling for the next nod of approval. Welcome back to The Leadership Wound. I'm your host, Amanda Rohr, and today we're beginning a brand new series called The Validation Trap. This series was born out of a universal struggle that I see again and again in leaders. The quiet but relentless craving for approval that we all have. We all feel it. We all long for someone to say, "You're doing a great job. You're enough. You're making a difference. The decisions that you're making are right on." That longing is human, but when it becomes the measure of your worth, it becomes a trap. And when we become paralyzed by how other people view how we're living our lives and making our decisions, it becomes a life sentence. That's why over the next 4 weeks, we're going to walk through this together, starting with awareness, seeing the trap for what it is, and then moving to impact, feeling why it hurts and how it drains our authentic leadership. Then we'll move to detox, practicing shifts that free us from chasing the approval of others. And lastly, we'll land on anchor, discovering a new way forward, rooted not in applause, but in the truth of who you are. This isn't just about describing the trap. It's about giving you a way out. My hope is that these conversations that we're going to have won't just help you recognize the pattern, but will also invite you into a different kind of freedom in how you live and lead. So today we're starting with the many faces of validation, because it doesn't always look the same for every one of us. For some of us, it's the applause of a crowd. For others, it's a promotion, a paycheck, or a social media like. And for leaders especially, it often comes in the form of being needed, admired, or praised. Let's talk about the science for a moment. Every time you receive positive feedback, your brain gets a tiny hit of dopamine, the same chemical released when you eat chocolate or scroll your favorite app. That hit feels good, and your brain says, "Do more of that." Over time, we can actually wire ourselves to need validation to feel steady, motivated, or safe. But here's what's fascinating. Dopamine doesn't just reward us for achieving something. It rewards us for the anticipation of the reward. That means we can become hooked not only on the like or the applause itself, but even on the possibility of it. Leaders often find ourselves replaying conversations, wondering, did I impress them? Did that land? Did they approve of what I just said or did? Not because we've received validation, but because we're waiting to see if it will come. And when it doesn't come, our brain doesn't just shrug. Researchers in social neuroscience have found that rejection, or the absence of validation, registers almost identically to physical pain. MRI studies have shown that the same areas of the brain light up when you're excluded from a social group as when you stub your toe. Think about it. When someone ignores you, criticizes you, or withholds praise, your brain interprets it as an actual wound. No wonder we crave the opposite. But here's the problem. Just like the sugar or caffeine, external validation is a short-term fix. It spikes our mood, then crashes us back into doubt. You can feel amazing after a compliment in the morning, only to spiral by afternoon when someone questions your ideas. The cycle creates instability. And if you're a leader, instability in your sense of worth is dangerous because you're constantly visible, constantly evaluated, constantly exposed to other people's opinions. There's also a deeper layer here. Humans are wired for belonging. Thousands of years ago, being accepted by the group wasn't just nice, it was called survival. To be cast out meant vulnerability, danger, and often death. So our nervous systems evolved to treat rejection as a threat. That's why the sting of someone's criticism can linger for days. It's not just about the words they say, it's about how our body registers danger. Your nervous system says, if they don't approve of me, I'm not safe. Will I be excluded? And so we overcompensate. We hustle. We keep trying and doing everything we can to earn the nods of approval we think we need in order to belong. But here's the paradox. The more we bend to fit others' approval, the less authentically we belong. We morph and become the people that people want us to be. People may approve of the performance, but they never get to know the real us. And so even when the validation comes, it can feel hollow. So what does external validation really look like? It rarely announces itself as, I need people's approval. Instead, it sneaks in through the back door of our habits and decisions. Here are a few forms I see again and again. Applause and visibility. For speakers or preachers or public leaders, the rush of standing ovation or an applause can become addictive. You start measuring whether a message was effective, not by the truth of it, but by the volume of response. It also is seen in titles and promotions. In organizational settings, validation often looks like chasing the next rung of the ladder. Leadership feels like a game of arrival. And once you get the role, that recognition, that seat at the table, then you're finally going to feel like enough. Or maybe it's social media metrics. In our digital world, likes, shares, and follows become a currency of worth. It's not just teenagers who feel it. I'll admit that I've refreshed my LinkedIn and Facebook pages more times than once to see if anyone noticed what I just put out in the world. Or maybe it's being needed. Some leaders equate their value with how indispensable they are. If everyone depends on me, then I matter. But this creates exhaustion. It can also create resentment and an unhealthy dynamic where you can't let others grow because their independence threatens your own sense of worth. Or maybe it's financial success. For some, money or material rewards become the measure of, am I enough? The paycheck, the bonus, the revenue report. They whisper, this is proof that I'm valuable. But let me ask you this. Out of all those expressions of external validation, which one resonates with you the most? Maybe you've caught yourself replaying a meeting or thinking, did I say that right? Do they still trust me? Did I lose credibility? Or maybe you've been chasing numbers, attendance, growth, revenue, as if they are proof that you matter. Here's the sticky part. On the surface, none of those things are bad. Promotions, applause, money, and even being needed. They can all be good things. The danger comes when they stop being fruit of our healthy leadership and they start becoming our fuel, our identity in leadership. Sometimes validation isn't loud. It's not the ovation or the paycheck. It's more subtle. It's the way your mood rises or falls depending on how quickly someone responds to your text. I know, I'm guilty of that. Or it's the sting when a colleague's idea gets recognized and yours goes unnoticed. Or maybe it's the overthinking spiral after you share an idea and people don't immediately affirm it. Here's a personal example. I know I'm hooked on external validation when someone criticizes me and I just can't let it go. It ruminates in my head over and over. Even if 20 people say they loved what I said, the one person who didn't is the voice I carry to bed, and which haunts me as I try to go to sleep. Does any of that resonate with you? It's a universal experience. We value what other people think of us, to the point that sometimes it dictates the decisions or choices we make and keeps us from living and leading authentically. And because it's a universal experience, it's why it's so important to slow down and notice it. You're human. Here's the trap. External validation feels like leadership fuel, but it actually drains you. Because if your worth is tied to someone else's reactions, you'll always be hustling for the next nod of approval. Think about it. What happens when the applause doesn't come? When the promotion isn't given and someone else receives it? When the metrics flatline? Suddenly the ground under you feels shaky. You wonder if you've lost your edge, if people still believe in you, if maybe you were never enough in the first place. And that's not sustainable. It's not authentic, and it's not leadership. True leadership flows from presence, clarity, and courage, not from the applause or validation of others. This is why I created one of my signature coaching packages called the Authentically You Journey. It's a 12-week one-on-one coaching experience where we look at exactly these kinds of patterns, the subtle ways we've outsourced our worth to other people's opinions. In this journey, you'll learn how to build awareness around what your validation triggers are. And remember, we all have them. And you'll develop emotional resilience and reconnect with your authentic self so that you can lead with clarity and confidence, not constantly wondering what other people think of your decisions. If you've been listening to this and thinking, that's me, that's my pattern, I know I'm caught in this cycle, then I want to invite you to book a free 30-minute growth plan consult at authenticleadershipcollective.com. It's the first step towards reclaiming your leadership from the trap of validation. So how do we start stepping out of the validation trap? Well, the first step is awareness. Here's a simple practice for the week. Every time you feel a strong emotion after an interaction, I want you to pause. Ask yourself, what was I hoping to get from this person? Was it approval? Was it agreement? Or was it applause? Remember, be compassionately curious. Journal down your answer. No judgment, just noticing what emotions, what thoughts are coming up after your interaction. Awareness is powerful because it shines a light on what once was invisible. When you realize, I'm not upset because the meeting was tense. I'm upset because I wanted their approval and I didn't get it. That's when clarity comes in. And clarity gives you choice. You may not change the feelings right away, but you begin to notice what's really going on under the surface. Here are a few journal prompts you can try this week. When did I feel most energized today? Was it because of internal clarity or external praise? When did I feel most anxious? What approval was I waiting for in that moment? And whose opinions feel heavier to me than they should? And why? Try out those questions for this week. Give yourself time to pause and reflect. You might be surprised at how often validation shows up in your living and leading. This is just the beginning. Over the next 3 weeks, we'll explore the high of applause and the crash of silence, the hidden cost of chasing enough, and finally how to break free from validation by building an inner anchor. Think of this series as a progression. First, noticing the trap, then naming its toll, then practicing shifts that release you, and finally stepping into a steadier way of living and leading. If you don't want to miss those episodes, make sure you hit the subscribe button now. And if today's message hit home, I'd love for you to take the next step and book your free 30-minute growth plan consult at authenticleadershipcollective.com. You don't have to stay stuck in cycles of validation. There's a way out, and I'd be honored to walk with you in it. Until next time, remember, external validation might feel good in the moment, but authentic living and leading doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the truth of who you are. Until next time, lead like you.